That in fact
Call
people...
Chris Hipkins.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I'm very pleased to take a call on this excellent bill from my colleague Darian Fenton, the Minimum Wage Remuneration Amendment Bill. Now, I was intrigued by some of the comments. From National Party members opposite Tauhenari in particular. I think he's national these days. It's hard to keep track. But Tauhenari thought that nobody made a living delivering pamphlets. So rather than dealing with the issue, they're just going to pretend that a whole lot of people don't exist. So they don't need to worry about the minimum wage, because instead they're just going to say, actually, those people don't exist at all anyway, so let's not worry about it. Nobody makes a living. That's what Tauhenari said. He came down here and he said that nobody made a living delivering pamphlets. Well, I can tell you that I have met several people in my electorate that do just that, and they get paid a pittance. And they get paid a pittance because their employers work their way around the minimum wage by having contracting arrangements. And that's exactly what this bill is going to be all about. Aaron Gilmore talked about choice, but choice for whom? Choice for whom? Who chooses to be poor? Who chooses to be poor? Not very many people. And he talked about the fact that he grew up in a state house, and I congratulate him, but that does not give him the right to pull up the ladder behind him. That does not give him the right to pull up the ladder behind him. He talked about choice, and it's choice for whom? Choice for the employers, choice for the people that work their way around the minimum wage in order to avoid paying hard-working Kiwis for a fair day's work. And what's wrong? What is it that the National Party object to about getting a fair day's pay for a fair day's work? What is it the National Party objects to about getting a fair day's pay for a fair day's work? Jerry Brownlee objects to that because he wouldn't get paid very much at all. He wouldn't get paid very much at all. This bill highlights the stark differences in approach between the Labour Party and the National Party, because the Labour Party stands with Kiwi workers when the going gets tough.
Point of order, Jerry Brownlee.
Mr. Speaker, I think, given the comments that's just been made by that Speaker, it's appropriate for me to point out that this bill sat on the order paper under the previous government without getting a reading before that guy was still in short pants.
The member is not raising a point of order. That's a debatable point. Please let the member continue his speech.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill highlights the differences in approach, the stark differences in approach between Labour and National, because Labour stands with Kiwi workers when the going gets tough, and we know that the going is pretty tough out there. 1 in 5 Kiwi workers are worried about their jobs. 1 in 5 of Kiwi workers are worried about their jobs, and we are ready and willing to work with the government to ensure that we protect those workers' jobs. But this government is not interested in protecting the jobs of the most vulnerable workers. They're not interested in helping the people on the minimum wage. They're not interested in helping the people who aren't even getting the minimum wage because of a loophole in the law. Because this government has turned their back on hard-working, low-income Kiwis. And their rolling maul. John Key talks about the rolling maul. Well, low-income New Zealanders have found themselves underneath the rolling maul. They are being mauled by the new National government. They are at the bottom of the maul. First of all, they had their tax cuts that the Labour government promised them taken away by National so that National could give them to people on higher incomes. It's like a reverse Robin Hood from the National Party, stealing from the poor to give to the rich. Stealing from the poor to give to the rich. And then they went after their savings by cutting the KiwiSaver scheme in half. That's right, they've been going after low-income workers ever since they got into government, and their opposition to this bill is just yet another example of that. They're going to vote against a bill that would extend a safety net for a whole raft of workers who could find themselves struggling as a result of tougher economic times. So who does this bill benefit? Who will be covered by this? People working in the building and construction services and labour jobs will be covered by this bill. And I want the National Party to stand up and tell those people working on building sites why one person who does a hard day's labour should be paid less than another person doing the same job with a hard day's labour, because one person's an employee and one person's a contractor. So let's hear the National Party stand up and justify that. Let's hear them stand up and justify that. This bill will protect people who are contracted to deliver newspapers and pamphlets and to letterboxes. Now, we've seen some shocking examples of that. The Fair Go TV programme, as some of my colleagues have alluded to, last year uncovered examples of children earning as little as 25 cents an hour. 25 cents an hour to deliver pamphlets, and that is just outrageous. It's just outrageous. However, there's some good news for the National Party, because there's one group of deliverers that won't be covered by this bill, and that's the legions of volunteers out there tromping the footpaths, delivering National Party leaflets. That's the exclusive brethren.
Come of G. Bakshi.